In this third exercise, I'm going to show you a very simple and fun way to begin understanding the way a watercolor painting is built. And we're going to be using both concepts of value and edges in this little exercise. And I think that you'll be surprised about how easily this comes together. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint a very simple landscape with some trees on a hill, like some foresty trees on a hill, and maybe it's a little bit foggy. There's a lot of atmosphere. So we're going to start out with a very nice, soft wash. We're going to keep our value very, very light with this blue. And we're even going to let that wash just kind of dissipate into the white paper up at the top. And as I move down the wash, I'll add just a little bit more pigment, a little bit more value. So as you can see, this is just going to be your standard gradient wash. We're going to start light up at the top, and as I move down toward the bottom of this piece of paper, I'm going to allow there to be a little bit more pigment. I don't want to go too dark with my value at this stage of the painting. And then I am going to mix up just a little bit more blue here. And while this is still wet, I'm just going to start adding in a little bit of texture into the distance. These are going to be some distant trees. They're going to be very soft, and they're going to be very cool in temperature, because if you know anything about atmospheric perspective, that basically means that objects in the distance are going to be both softer in terms of their edges, lighter in terms of value, but also cooler in terms of temperature. So these trees that are going to be very far in the distance, it's really going to help that they have a nice, cool appearance. So we're just going to stick with our basic blue here. I'm going to add just a little bit of texture by lifting up some pigment with my paper towel. And now with the same mixture, I just added in a little bit more yellow. Now this is still very wet. I have not used my blow dryer to dry this at all because I want to keep this very soft still. So I'm not going to completely cover up all of the blue, but I'm just going to start adding in a little bit more of this green hue. And now I'm going to add a little bit more pigment in here so that I get a darker value. So I took a lot more of my blue, and I'm also going to get quite a bit more yellow. We're going to get really a nice true green. The big difference here is that there's not quite as much water in the mixture. There's a lot more pigment. And I'm going to go ahead and dry this for the first time. And now we're going to start building up some harder edges. I'm still keeping these strokes very loose and abstract, and of course I don't want to cover up all of those lighter values and those soft edges in the background. So I'm applying some harder edges on top, leaving them kind of pointed up at the top, just like as if they are evergreen trees. And this is going to help us begin to build up both some variation in our edges and some variation in our values. So I dried that once again, so this is nice and dry, and we're going to be able to make our value darker by adding more and more pigment in relation to the amount of water. And then our edges are going to become harder as the trees in the midground become a little bit more within our range of focus. And again, I want to vary these so that I'm not completely covering up those previous layers. Those are going to be very important to give that perception of distance and atmosphere. And I'm not going off any kind of photo reference for this. I'm just kind of winging it. And basically what we want to do is just practice with our edge variation and our value variation. And so this should be a really nice, easy project for you to start understanding how we build most watercolor paintings, because almost all of the time we're going to start with our lightest values and soft edges, and as we proceed through the painting we will gradually build up our values, make them darker, and we'll also start beginning to integrate more of our hard edges, and that's what gives a painting a little bit more structure. A lot of times watercolor paintings, when you're beginning them, they feel very unstructured because we have so many soft edges. And it's almost like magic when we start adding in just a few hard edges. It really brings the painting to life and it begins to make sense for us. So for this final layer here, I actually added just a little bit of red into the mixture, but you can see that I am using a lot of pigment, not much water. This is very viscous paint. And this is where I'm going to add in just a few foreground trees that are going to have a lot of hard edges, a lot of texture, especially compared to all the trees in the midground and especially the trees in the distance. And you'll be able to see once we have all of these foreground trees applied, that this really creates a nice painting, a very simple painting. And in fact, this is something that can make a really nice greeting card if you just need to make a quick card for someone at the last minute. It's a very nice, elegant design. You don't have to look at any kind of photo reference for it. And most importantly, this is an exercise in how we can begin to think about the process of watercolor painting. So take your time with this, enjoy it, maybe even experiment with using different colors. Maybe you have other ideas. Maybe you want to do a mountain range or something like that, because these same concepts are going to apply. So we'll just take a closer look, and I hope that you can see that this came together really nicely. It's kind of abstract, but at the same time, it makes a lot of sense.